leave. I haven't quite finished it, so you're not going to get it today.
Okay. I'll have to bring you that book present.
I got this far on. Welcome, everybody. We will start on time, so we have about 6 minutes here.
And then the project Friday is 1 through 4.
Okay, I think all of our judges are here, so I'll at least tell you a little bit. My name's Terry Cook, and I'm going to be introducing Taylor today. This is Taylor Shepard. But I want to give you a little bit of information on your Chromebooks. You will be doing all the scoring on the Chromebooks. Once it's submitted, you cannot go back and change it. So make sure that before you submit it, you've marked everything the way you want to mark it. And you will mark like, is it ABC? 1, 2, 3? Yeah, ABC, that's what I thought. So you'll mark, and then at the end of the form, there is a section for the comments. So anything you would like to add, and we really encourage you to do that because that's how our students grow. Also a heads up, this is being live streamed, so anything you say could be picked up on the live stream mic. So, yeah, don't even go there. So just a heads up that if it's something that, you know, is not real positive or encouraging, please, you know, keep it to yourself for that reason. This will be timed. What else do we want to tell you?
You keep time.
We have students that will keep time.
We have students that can tell time.
Something
They
like
do,
that.
yeah.
Check it, I just-
However, you're not, at this point, you're not judging on their time.
I don't judge on that?
No.
Okay.
It will be written down for the students and
Okay.
for the teacher, but that's not something you're to judge on.
All right.
The presentations will run 8 to 10 minutes. Make sure that your judging forms have Taylor's number on it and your judge's number. And we'll start in about 2 minutes. Just in case somebody else wants to show up to see the presentation. I'd like to stay on that. At the end of Taylor's presentation, you are welcome to ask her questions, and I'm sure she would welcome them because our students really go to a lot of in-depth work on their projects. So feel free to verbally ask questions when she's done. Are we ready?
Are my judges ready? Everyone in this room knows how stressful life can be, and as a high school senior, I understand that very well. But what we might not understand is how dangerous stress can be. Good evening, my name is Taylor Shepard, and this is the dangers of stress. Before we can understand exactly how dangerous stress is, we first need to understand what stress is. Stress is the mind and body's reaction to danger. When the mind senses danger, it sends an imbalance between the two, which then sends a chemical called epinephrine to the bloodstream. This can cause tightening of the muscles. It can also increase fuel, which is glucose, and oxygen to our body, and it can also cause our blood pressure to increase. This is commonly known as the fight or flight response, and stress is the prolonged fight or flight response. While this all happens in our body during stress, stress can have many physical and mental effects on our bodies. Some physical effects that stress can have is it can deteriorate our immune system. It can cause asthma due to inflammation in the lungs, and it can also be connected to heart disease due to the fact that stress and hypertension have been known to have a relationship between the two, and hypertension is a main factor within heart disease. That's just some physical effects that stress can have on our bodies, and mental effects are, it can cause anxiety and depression, and it can also cause PTSD, which is also known as post-traumatic stress disorder, and that is when someone's mind goes back to how it was when it experienced a traumatic situation. While stress has effects on both our minds and our body, there are many factors of what causes stress and what stress can cause. One of these being the economy. Last year, in the middle of my junior year, it was greatly affected by COVID-19. During COVID-19, studies shown that 40.9% of people experienced a behavioral health condition ranging from anxiety to depression, 30.9% in a trauma or stressor-related condition, and a 13.3% in substance abuse to cope with the stress that COVID-19 has had on their lives. Not only that, but unemployment is a large risk factor in our lives every day. And it has been shown that unemployment with a stressor in the workforce has a higher rate than unemployment without a stressor in the workforce. Not only this, but suicide rates have been on the climb since the 1990s. From 2000 to 2016, there was a 30% increase in suicide rates. And in 15 to 18-year-olds to 24-year-olds, there was 11.8 per 100,000% of suicide rates. In the age group 20 to 24, there was a 17 per 100,000% increase. And 9 times out of 10, a teenager or a person that commits suicide has had either one or more mental condition, including depression or anxiety. However, there are many ways to improve our stress, but some people don't realize this due to a stigma with stress. There's a common known stigma in stress and mental illness, seeing people believe that mental illness is not a thing and that that stress is needed in our lives. While small doses of stress is good for us, it can help us keep on track and keep us motivated, but it is when it becomes prolonged and too much that it becomes dangerous. And there are many treatments to stress than most people believe. There is talk therapy, which is just talking to someone, not just a psychiatrist. It can be a friend or a clergy member. There's aromatherapy, body work, herbal therapy, and many others. There are also many mental improvements from reducing stress. These being depression and anxiety rates can decrease, but also that you have a feeling of control over your body and your lifestyle. And there are also physical improvements to reducing stress. You are less tired, you're more energized, you're less sick. You just feel much better if you are less stressed. With all this research in mind, I decided to try to help my peers with a stress management class. My stress management class met once every month from 3 to 4:30 or 4, depending on how long our lessons ranged, in Miss Martin's room. We learned many things in my class, but the first class was just an introduction. I introduced myself and I explained what stress is and why it is dangerous to our bodies. I also went to explain what emotions are, because within my research and my research for my stress management class, I learned that emotions tie back to everything. Emotions don't just start in our mind, they start in our spinal cord, and which is one reason why mind over matter does not work, which is what people tend to try to do with stress. We also learned why we need a self-care routine. Self-care routines are very good for your body and can help reduce stress as well. It is one of the treatments for stress. In our second class, we learned what inhibitory versus core emotions were and did a guided emotion exercise. However, this class did run a little bit longer, so our lesson got cut short a bit. And finally, we did a third class, which in that class I taught to my novels class that Miss Berry teaches at the end of the day at school due to some issues with scheduling. But in this class, I taught what I would have actually fully taught in my second class, combined with what I was planning on teaching in my third class. In my classes, I used research from my research paper, but I also used research from Hilary Jacobs Hindle and Renee Brown. Hilary Jacobs Hindle is very known for the change triangle and core emotions, defenses, and inhibitory emotions, all those that I taught in my class. However, my classes did not come without many challenges. One challenge I faced was time management and quarantine. This beginning of this year, I was only able to go to school for 1 week, and then I was quarantined for a whole month. While we were just starting to get our senior projects figured out and knowing what we wanted to do, it was very stressful for me and a struggle for me due to the fact that I didn't have as much resource as all the other kids, and all my contact with my teachers got lost in emails with the rest of the faculty at Willow. And time management was a big issue with me as well, because I work a job after school 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, and my mentor also has her own family and speech and debate that she has to deal with as well. So it was hard to find time to get my mentor hours and also schedule our classes. But another issue I faced was unfortunate weather circumstances. In February, we were shut down for 2 weeks due to what some would call a blizzard of snow. And during those 2 weeks, I had actually scheduled a class for that Thursday, but we ended up not being in school. And so then we scheduled it for the next week, and we weren't in school. And then after that, our schedules just did not line up. We had a lot of time management issues. And so my classes actually got cut short. I had planned for 4 classes, only able to get 3 in. And that last class had to be taught to my novels class. And finally, I had a lot of self-confidence issues and stage fright. Presenting in class and to my teachers and my peers have always frightened me. It causes my stutter and my lisp to come out a lot more. And that causes me to be very self-conscious about public speaking due to that. But not only that, I was self-conscious about taking information that I had researched but I hadn't had much education on and reiterating it to someone who hasn't even thought about how dangerous stress might be. However, through all these challenges and issues I faced, I efficiently managed to teach my own class to my peers and help them manage their stress better. And not only that, I learned some ways to manage my stress as well. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
What's your number one thing that you're gonna go to when you're stressed? What's the number one tactic that you like?
My number one tactic would probably be to try to do some physical exercise, either that or take a mental health day. Because if I get too stressed out, before I learned my stress management, I would just let it build up and build up until it was too much anymore, so I would have to take a mental health day to relieve all that. But I really like to try to do some sort of body work, running, marching band to help relieve that stress, or take a bubble bath, warm blankets, do a little mental health day to help relieve that a bit.
So what is your biggest takeaway from this whole project?
My biggest takeaway would be to take care of yourself, because I've always known that we need to take care of ourselves, but that had always been an issue with me. I have a very fast-paced life. When I was a kid, I was going back and forth between 2 parents' house, so I was always trying to figure out what clothes to take, where to go, where, when, what, and then after school activities, I'm in band, I'm in choir, and then added on to my senior year, I work a job. On a good week, I get only 20 hours. On a normal week, I get 25 to 30, sometimes 40 hours in just 5 or 6 days. So I took away that I really do need to take care of myself a lot more.
Is that the reason you chose this project?
The reason why I chose this project was actually because I've always liked the idea of helping someone, and I used to want to be a police officer when I was a kid, but I had a major surgery on my leg, so now that's not possible. And my junior year, I took psychology with Mr. Knapp, and I loved it. I absolutely loved psychology, and it always intrigued me, so that made me want to become a psychologist when I graduated from high school. And so from that, I thought, it's a stressful year. We don't really know what's going to happen this year. When we came to school, we didn't know if we were going to be shut down 2 weeks in. We didn't know it was going to be quarantined, how we were going to do sports, which is a major stress relief for many students. So I thought, why not help people like I'd always wanted to help my peers and also do something that I love, which is psychology.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, judges, please go ahead and fill out your judging forms, and then you can submit it at the bottom when you're ready. Do you need some help taking some things down, or? Yeah, we can go ahead and.
And you all may take your packets so we can.
I think also be in here for the next presentation.
No, I'm kidding, no. No.
I have a crease through mine, so I was trying to figure out this.
You want to take that?
It's really water. Thank you. Oh, I just don't want to get mixed up with.
It's right there. Thank you.
So you're not judging?
I'm not judging.
But you have a choir competition, or choir program on Sunday, right?
Yes.
Is it going to be live streamed?
It will be live streamed, it will be recorded.
Okay.
Yes.
Where is it?
First Baptist Church in
Okay.
Wall Springs, yeah. And one of the songs on there, we're doing for the budget. So, yeah, so.
Awesome. I've had several of the students excited and mentioned it to me, so.
Oh, very good, good. Yay.
Our next presentation starts at 5:20, so we have a few minutes.
You can just relax. Relax a little bit, stretch, you know.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, on this presentation, are you gonna teach me how to use my phone to scan this QR code so I can see your pictures? No?
I can show you real quick if you really want me to.
You know what, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Come by the classroom sometime tomorrow.
ready to start. Once again, I want to thank our judges for judging. This is Cassidy Andrews, and her number is 1354-1354 if you need to log in, if you haven't done that yet. And I will also remind everyone that this is being live streamed, so please be cautious of the comments you make and how you phrase things, because we want our students to get every form of respect that they deserve. They've worked very hard on these. Please feel free to ask questions at the end of this, and also on the judging form, there is an area at the very end where you can make comments. And Cassidy, you have everything you need?
Yes.
Wonderful. Any questions? Thank you.
Are my judges ready? Music has a huge impact on cultures all around the world. It can affect how we interact with others and how we perceive the world around us. However, there's been a recent trend in public schools for them to defund or abolish entirely their music programs because they no longer see it as a valuable part of everyday education. Hello, my name is Cassidy Andrews, and my speech tonight is going to prove to you why music education is valuable and cannot be left in the past. This project is very close to me because I have personally been impacted by music in my life. I've been a part of the music program through choir and band here for 7 years. Through these activities, I have been able to grow and become a more confident version of myself. The version of me before I was performing with the band and the choir would not be able to stand in front of you tonight and give this speech. But beyond my own personal growth, music has many benefits for other students as well, starting in student achievement. Music teaches students many valuable skills that carry over into their other classes, such as patience, dedication, and the importance of practicing something over and over again until they get it. Furthermore, according to a study done by Faulkner in 2015, it is impossible for a student to fully engage with a music education course and come away with no improvement. This starts in the very fundamentals of when they're learning music in 5th or 6th grade. First, they must memorize these symbols on a page and understand what they mean, then be able to recognize the patterns and identify the melodies and harmonies in the music. Then they must be able to visualize this music in their minds and understand how it will sound and how it will sound correct when it comes out of their instrument or their mouth. Then they must translate this into a movement with their body, either through singing or playing an instrument that will bring this music into a reality. After that, it's a matter of adding musicality to the piece, tone, intonation, dynamics, tempo, and other things that will be directed by whoever is giving the students direction. Outside of school, though, music also has many physical benefits. This especially applies to students who have physical disabilities, such as Tourette's. How we move naturally is what's known as a kinetic melody. However, students who have physical disabilities, such as Tourette's, have what's called a kinetic stutter, meaning they can't move fluently. They have what's called tics. Music has been proven to activate the part of the brain that has to do with your kinetic melody and can allow for students who have physical disabilities to smooth over that kinetic stutter, so that if a student has a background in music education, they could then identify what in music helps them specifically to smooth over their kinetic stutter, and it could help them in the future to prevent from having tic attacks or something similar. Furthermore, music education classes can be very beneficial for those who are blind. The rest of us, every day, we use visual aids to confirm what we perceive with the rest of our senses. People who are blind don't have this same luxury. They have to rely primarily on their hearing. Music education classes teach students how to differentiate between dynamics and tempo and things like that, that if someone is blind, being able to differentiate things like that could give them a more clear perception of their surroundings. For example, being able to tell how far away someone is by how loud or soft their voice or their footsteps are. Beyond the physical world, though, music education also has many mental health benefits. The primary way I would show this is through music therapy. Music therapy has been proven to be highly effective in trauma victims because, like with any other form of therapy, it relies heavily on the patient being comfortable in the therapy setting. If someone already has a background in music education, this would allow them to communicate clearly using music as a device to tell their therapist what's wrong, or if they're having a panic attack, to communicate that, so that it would really speed along their treatment if they already have a background and are comfortable with music. Furthermore, music therapy has been proven to be highly effective with those who suffer from depression or anxiety or any other mental illness that is caused by chemical imbalances in the brain. Now, because I've been in music education for so long, I knew immediately that I wanted my senior project to be a performance of some kind. I settled on doing a 6-person ensemble with the choir. I started, once my senior project was approved, by going to the choir room and looking through the music library to pick 2 beautiful pieces that I had already been thinking about for a while, and I was so happy to have them approved. The pieces I chose were Come In From the Firefly Darkness, arranged by Amy Burnett, and Seasons of Love from Rent, arranged by Matt Huff. Once I had these pieces picked out, I then had to assemble my ensemble. I chose to do a high school level ensemble, which means I was picking from my peers. I chose students who either I trusted to be dependable, consistently show up and work hard, or who I just thought would benefit from being in a music education course during the school year. After that, I spent the next 3 weeks between when I picked my pieces and when we started our classes, coming after school almost every single day to learn the pieces myself. I was in our choir teacher's room constantly. I learned how to play both pieces, all 3 parts in both pieces, on the piano, and how to sing them for myself. So when it came time for the classes, I could teach my students without having to confirm with my music or think back and struggle with even knowing it myself. Once I was confident on the pieces, it was time to begin our classes. I spent the first 2 weeks of our classes going over the basic rhythm and melody of Come In From the Firefly Darkness. After that, classes 3 and 4 were focused on Seasons of Love and doing the same thing. Then the next 4 weeks were focused on cleaning and adding musicality to the pieces. We worked on dynamics, entrances, and cutoffs, and anything else that would have to be directed by me specifically. And this was all leading up to our performance. We did a virtual performance this year due to COVID, where our performance was live streamed to the entire high school and whoever else wanted to watch in the district. I was incredibly proud of getting to see my ensemble perform and see the music that we had all worked so hard on for the past 2 months really come to life. But getting to this point had its own challenges, starting first and foremost with my own comfort in front of a classroom. I have been filling this student role in the classroom for the past 12 years of my life, and it was a dramatic shift to becoming the teacher. I struggled a lot at first with giving concise and clear instructions so that my students could understand me, but also just remembering that it wasn't just time that I was spending with my peers, it was time that I had to remind them to stay on task and to work hard, because I was the teacher in the room. There was no one else to do that for me. Although our choir teacher was there, it wasn't his job to do that at that time. The other primary struggle I had happened when I was first learning the music. So because I've been in music for so long, I obviously am very familiar with it, but I've always been reading music in treble clef, both in band and choir, because of the instruments I've played and the part I sing. The pieces I chose, however, were SAB pieces, meaning that I had to learn the bottom part or the bass part of the music. I had to learn an entire new way of looking at the scale and remembering the new scale pattern that I had to learn when I was just trying to teach myself these pieces. I ended up writing in the notes to all of the bass music so that I could remember when I was teaching it to the boys that I had to call the notes by different names and get past that. Now, I'm very grateful because through my product, I really got to see proof of my own research right before my own eyes. There was a student in my ensemble who at the beginning really struggled with speaking up in front of the class, asking questions in front of even just the 7 of us in that room. However, when another student was struggling with the solo in that section, she stepped up and took the solo. By the time our concert came around, she performed beautifully, and she did the solo without faltering in front of roundabouts 300 people. I was incredibly proud, and that proved to me more than anything else that music education has real-world benefits and is a part of our education system that can no longer be left in the past. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
All right, if there are no other questions, judges, please take this time to just fill out your forms. Thank you so much, Kathy, very, very nice job. And then there are an area for comments at the bottom. Please hit submit when you are done with that. You are also welcome, I should have mentioned last time, to keep the papers, the packets of the students' work. You're welcome to keep those if you would like. If you don't, we'll recycle them, but. Keep them in time. Very nice. Obviously, went to a lot of work to prepare for that. Very, very nice job. Thank you for coming.
You got the memo, didn't you?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Give me the Chromebooks. Thank you, Dana. Just for your information, the next session will start in 6 minutes. And I will give you some information shortly about logging in if you haven't done that.
Yeah.
Unless you want to be on the edge here, we can get that one going.
Oh,
too.
that works good too.
Who wants to be in the front row?
I
right?
never sat in when I was in school, why start now?
Never know. Okay, since all of our judges are here, as I said, we have about 3 or 4 minutes before we will actually start. But you will log into your Chromebook using your judge's number that you've received and the session number of 1222. And it should be Ashley Kelly that should come up. I also want to take this moment to thank our judges for giving up your time and helping to support our seniors. This is being live streamed, so just a caution that anything you say will be live streamed out there. We do welcome questions at the end. Our students have worked really hard to know their subject and be prepared for this, and they welcome questions. But just a heads up, like I said, things are live streamed, and so your side talk, if you don't want it to be broadcast all over, there's always a time and place, but not now.
Could you give us the project ID number?
Yes, it's 1222.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Judges, any questions in getting logged in, or? I'd like to introduce to you Miss Ashley Kelly.
Are my judges ready?
Yes.
When you go to the doctor to get blood drawn, you probably aren't expecting to get abnormal results. But the day after Bree Lovin got her blood drawn, she got a call from the doctor that changed her life forever. The nurse on the other end of the line said that the doctors were puzzled by her results. They said that she most likely had leukemia, she needed to pack her bags and head to the hospital for at least a 30-day stay. Hi, my name is Ashley Kelly, and many people believe there's a standardized treatment for blood cancer. I chose this topic because I'm going to college to become a nuclear pharmacist, and I absolutely love doing puzzles. The two most common types of blood cancer are leukemia and lymphoma. Leukemia is cancer that affects the bone marrow and the lymphatic system. Bree was first diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, AML, which morphed into acute lymphoblastic leukemia, ALL. Another type of cancer of leukemia is chronic lymphocytic leukemia. This is more common in older adults. A fourth type is chronic myeloid leukemia. This accounts for nearly 10% of all leukemia diagnoses. Leukemia is the most common cancer in children. It accounts for 1 out of every 3 childhood cancer diagnoses. Lymphoma is another common type. Lymphoma affects the lymphatic system, which is used to produce immune cells, which helps your body fight infection. The 2 most common types of lymphoma are Hodgkin's lymphoma, HL, and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, NHL. Hodgkin's lymphoma is classified by the presence of a specialized cell called the Reed-Sternberg cell. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma does not have this cell present. When starting out treatment for blood cancer, the first thing that needs to be done is to try and get rid of as many cancer cells as possible. This is typically done by using chemotherapy and radiation. This combination is also used to prepare the body for a bone marrow transplant. The most common transplant that a patient with blood cancer can receive is a bone marrow transplant. Bone marrow is one of the largest organs in the body, and it is responsible for producing billions of blood cells every day. It produces red blood cells, white blood cells, as well as platelets. In order for when a patient is tested to get a bone marrow transplant, they have to test both the donor and recipient's tissue types. These are called human leukocyte antigens, HLA markers. These are like puzzle pieces. In order for the donor and recipient to be a good match, these pieces have to fit together. With a perfect match, there's less likely of a chance that the donor will reject the recipient's donation. Bree was able to receive a transplant from someone on the other side of the world. She also received one from her brother. This type of transplant is called an allogeneic transplant. This is where the donor and recipient have different DNA. Another type of transplant is an autologous transplant. This is where the donor and recipient are actually the same person. They take the cells out of the donor to begin with, and then they treat them with chemotherapy and radiation, and then they put the cells back in. A benefit to an allogeneic transplant is the immune system from the donor comes along with those cells, whereas in an autologous transplant it doesn't. So I researched the treatments for blood cancer, and like I stated, I love doing puzzles. So I knew I needed to find some way to combine these. So for my product, I created an escape room. Teams of up to 3 people were given 15 minutes to solve all of the puzzles and escape. I had 4 puzzle pieces hidden throughout the room. In order to find the piece, there were multiple steps. For the first puzzle piece, the puzzle piece that was the hardest to find, the participants started by finding a set of keys. But the keys were hidden in a basket of peppermints in the middle of the table. So they had to dig through that and then find the keys. And the keys went to the diary. The diary was hidden in a stack of books in the corner of the room. And inside the diary, there's a code. And the code unlocks the lock on the box. And the puzzle piece was in the box. So once you put all those pieces together, you would end up finding one piece. So to find another piece, I had it hidden in a box of puzzles. And just to make it harder, I hid it at the bottom of the box of puzzles. And then I hid the whole box with the piece in it in a paper shredder inside the room, just to make it more difficult. The third piece I had hidden, I took a book and I cut the middle out of it, and I put the piece in it. So from the outside, you couldn't tell that there was a piece in it. You would have to look through the book, all of the books, in order to find it. And it was hidden in a different stack of books in the room. There were lots of obstacles. The fourth piece I had hidden underneath the table. So the participants had to get really down low to find it. Some of the teachers were even crawling on the floor. it was pretty fun. The fastest time I had was 6 minutes and 54 seconds. That was actually by a group of our teachers. And altogether, I had 17 teams of students and 7 teams of teachers that got to come through it. And because of them, and I had an entry fee, I was able to raise over $100 for an organization that is working to delete blood cancer. So in order for them to escape, once they had found all of the pieces are double-sided. So on one side, it talks about the cancers and their treatment. On the other side, it has instructions. So they would follow the instructions, and they had to send me a picture. So these were the pictures that I was kind of expecting and kind of hoping to get. But these are the pictures I did get. I think they're more entertaining. My mentor, Dylan Carter, and I, if we thought a group was going through just a little too fast, or we thought they might need a little extra help, we would call in the room and we would give them clues. A clue we might give them in order to help them, we would tell them to check the books. This would be either to find the diary or to find the piece that was hidden inside the book. Something we might tell them to throw them off, which we'd make really quick phone calls. We would call them there just long enough for them to answer, and then we'd say what we needed to say and we'd hang up, so they couldn't ask any other questions. We might tell them that there's a fly in the ointment. And this doesn't mean anything, has nothing to do with my escape room. But it was interesting to see that some of them would sit there and really think about what this could possibly mean. And some of them would just blow it off and be like, okay, that doesn't mean anything, go on. And so we also had a riddle in the room. We set it on the table. And it is what has a head and legs, but is not living. A table. This way they would know to look underneath the table. So throughout this whole process, I created many puzzles and challenges for the participants to solve. The biggest challenge I faced was trying to find a space to hold my escape room. Luckily, I was given permission to use the high school conference room for 2 weeks during lunch. So during the month of January, I had 2 weeks where the students would come in during their lunchtime, and I had 2 groups per lunchtime. They would come in, they would do it, and they would go back to class. And then I had a couple days after school where the teachers would come in and do it. The teachers were a lot more fun to watch, because who doesn't want to see their teachers crawling on the floor and stuff? Bree Lovin has received 2 bone marrow transplants and has been diagnosed with 3 different types of cancer. She is currently undergoing treatment, and she is working to escape blood cancer. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
Through your research, what did you learn that you think will help with your job that you want to get as a career?
Probably, that's a difficult one.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Probably the different types, because they all kind of affect a different part. So the different types will help know what this is going to treat.
I noticed Mrs. Lovin was a reference for your paper.
Yeah.
How much time did you spend with her on your project?
We more emailed back and forth, because trying to write the paper, it's better to have everything written down. But I learned a lot of her story from that.
Do we have any additional questions? Once again, I would like to thank our judges. Remember, once that your comments are submitted, they cannot be unsubmitted. You are welcome to keep your judges' packets with the research. And thank you again.
Thank you, Ashley.
If you guys noticed, the code was senior 21.
Oh. I didn't catch it.
Some groups would catch it and some would just figure it was groups of letters.
So where are you going to school?
I'm going to Southwestern Oklahoma State University.
I think I heard that. Let's see, about 6 minutes or so.
Are we not starting until
Well,
actually?
6 o'clock, I think, is when you start. So. A lot of times people want to come in and watch, so
Yeah.
try and stay on schedule.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to welcome our judges. For those of you that are new, or at least new in here, I don't know what you experienced in the other room, but I would like to introduce Thomas Cheney, and he will be session number 1252. And then you will put in your judge number. If you don't know your judge number, I can look that up for you. I do want to thank you for taking the time to support our students and do this for them. Another reminder, this is being live streamed, so we do encourage questions at the end. Students have worked very hard learning their topic. They want you to ask questions. But like I said, any side talk you might do is going to pick up on the live stream, so just a heads up. And we will start in about a minute. There's also a place for comments at the end of the rubric there that's in front of you that you'll be able to type for our students.
Are my judges ready?
Yes. Yes.
Reading is essential for those who seek to rise above the ordinary. Hello, I'm Thomas Cheney, and the issue that I decided to dedicate much of my senior year to is reading and its state in modern society. The benefits of reading are measurable and should be implemented more heavily into education. In this presentation, I'm going to try and explain why this is so important to me and why I chose this for my senior project. But first, I want to talk about the benefits of reading overall and how I've experienced it in my own life. So it has only been a brief period of time where I have treated reading as a priority in my life. For a long time, I barely read at all, but suddenly I found myself reading and reading more frequently, and I was enjoying to read. And aside from the joys I felt while reading, I noticed other areas of my life improving as well. My grades improved, I was understanding what I learned in school better, and overall, I was just desiring to read more and to learn more. I chose this for my project because I wanted other people to feel what I felt while reading. If this could do for other people what it did for me, then why not try to spread this? So eventually I came to the conclusion that through my senior project, I could help kids read more. My senior research paper was over multiple studies of reading, including the processes behind reading, what's going on in the mind while reading, how reading helps improve our lives, and how to correctly implement this into students' educations. But my first subject of research was over purposeful reading. So as readers, when we sit down to read, we adjust our reading to fit specific purposes. And these purposes alter from reader to reader, and they all affect the outcomes of reading, such as memory, level, and comprehension. Purposeful reading can be divided into three different categories: to type of reading, type of engagement, and level of engagement. Type of reading refers to what you are reading and at what level. Type of engagement refers to the information that you actually target for reading, and level of engagement refers to the amount of text that you actually read. So these are the basic skills in reading, and now I want to talk about the processes involved in reading, and most importantly, the most important one, which is comprehension. So what is comprehension? Comprehension, simply put, is the level of retention you have towards what you've read. If you graze over the text, you read it very quickly, then you will have a low comprehension. But if you read slowly and deeply, then you will have a high comprehension. The analysts of early education divide comprehension into three different categories. The first one is questioning the text. So to be a good reader, you must be active in asking questions. You must be questioning what the author's purpose is for putting specific things in the story and what they're trying to get you to feel. The second one is using text features. So if you can correctly identify the theme, the plot, the tones, and the moods of the story, then you've done a good job reading. And lastly, the most straightforward one is summarizing. If you can correctly summarize, then you've done a good job reading. Believe it or not, the platform that students use to read deeply affects comprehension. In today's society, a lot of things are becoming digitalized, and a lot of the reading that students do is done on a computer. This is harmful to students because reading on a computer often results in short, quick attention spans, which is harmful to reading. Readers should be aiming to read deeply and reflect deeply. What I wanted to do with my senior project was change the culture of reading among our youth. As a member of today's youth, I can say that reading levels are nowhere near where they need to be. The research in my senior project indicates a necessity for change. The leading analyst of early education in this country is the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP, and they give out an annual test that examines students' abilities to read and write. The results of these tests have been largely disappointing in recent years. Only 6% of students test on what the test designers designate as the advanced level, and a lot of reading levels have dropped significantly over the past few years. Overall, the results have been deemed disappointing, and a lot of the teachers are not using this to work on reading in the classroom. So the best way to change the culture of reading is to get students excited about reading. And there are two very good ways to do this. The first being independent reading. So it just makes sense logically to let students pick what they read, which is independent reading. If you give students the ability to pick what they read and choose what they want to read, then they will enjoy reading more and read more. Since 2004 in this country, leisure reading has dropped by 30%, which is alarming. The second great way to get students excited about reading is book clubs. A book club is where you get readers together to read the same book at the same time. And this is the best way to get self-conscious and struggling readers together to read and work on their reading. And reading in a book club gives students a sense of community and gets them working towards a common goal. Aside from readers increasing their reading levels through book clubs, better attendance and better homework habits are also byproducts of this. So for my senior project, I chose to do both of these with a virtual book club for middle schoolers. So in the fall, when I was deciding what to do for my senior project, I wanted to do a book club, but I thought for the best that it should be virtual because of the threat of COVID-19 earlier in the year. I came to Mr. Earls, the 5th grade English teacher, with this idea, and he thought it was a good idea. I checked with Dr. Spencer, the middle school principal. She thought it was a good idea too. So I had the okay to start the project, and I had Mr. Earls get a list of students that he thought would be interested in the project. So while Mr. Earls was gathering students that he thought would be interested in this project, I asked Ms. Holt, the middle school librarian, for a recommendation for reading, and she chose the award-winning book, Captain Superlative, for the book. And I purchased the books, I gave them off to the students, and the project was started. So the way this project worked was that I would let the students read at a casual pace while I also read at a casual pace, and I would send out a few simple questions every chapter to test their comprehension and reading purposes. Now, this is the way the project worked for the remainder of the project. We read through the entire book and they answered the questions, so I thanked them for participating in my project. In my project, I faced a lot of challenges like any senior. Among the first two, they go really hand in hand. So because of the threat of COVID-19 in the fall, I had to adjust from a face-to-face book club to virtual. Being virtual provided its own set of technological difficulties. I had to rely on the students' ability to respond to technology and their access to technology to respond to it. Another challenge I faced was selecting students. So when Mr. Earls got students that he thought would be interested in the project, he got an overwhelming amount of students that wanted to participate. So from a financial standpoint, for having to buy the books, I had to narrow this list down, and that required me to choose random students that I knew nothing about and left some kids out of the project, which was tough to deal with. And another one was getting responses. So the 5th graders do have access to email, but it is very limited. They have access about every other day for 15 minutes. So they had this small window to respond to the questions that I sent out and their ability to respond on technology. Reading is a hidden gem in our society. If you implement this into your own life, you just might rise above the ordinary. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
What type of books do you like to read?
Mostly fiction. I put a lot of the authors I like to read up here. So like Ernest Hemingway, James Joyce, and Jack Kerouac, so on.
How old were you when you got into the interest of reading?
Last year, so 16, 17.
And what prompted that, you think?
I think it was Mr. Kohlmeyer wanted me to read Lord of the Rings because I liked the movies, and that really got me into it.
Why do you think that kids aren't reading books?
The research that I did in my senior project shows that the reading levels have dropped from the NAEP. So,
Do you think it's because of the digital age?
yeah, I don't know if that specifically contributed to it, but it contributes to poor reading habits, which probably, results with fewer readers.
Do you think that classic literature brings forth better judgment from the person who's reading classic literature? Better character?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of benefits to reading classical literature, I think. Yeah.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you. I would like to thank our judges. Please take this time to finish telling your rubrics and add some comments at the bottom if you would like to do so. And hit submit. Thank you.
He's gonna start laughing if I think
That was Thomas's screen. I don't know how to freeze it.
Should there be?
Just got-
We will be starting in about 3 minutes. If our judges would like to double check, this is Justin Cheney. His session number is 1241. And then, of course, your judge number. Please remember, this is being live streamed, so anything that you may whisper or talk among yourselves may actually be broadcast farther than you anticipate, so just beware. And at the bottom of your rubrics will be a place to write comments, and please do that to help our students grow and also give them feedback on what they've done that's so wonderful and so forth. And they welcome questions at the end. They've worked very, very hard for their research, and they're prepared. They want you to know what they've found out, so please feel free to ask questions. We will start in 1 minute.
Are my judges ready? So coming into high school, I was really worried about how I was going to make the transition from middle school to high school. I was dealing with new teachers, a whole new building, and mainly new classmates. Luckily, I had sports there for me. Through summer workouts and practices, I got to know a lot of these people, and I became really good friends with them. By the time the school year started, the transition was really seamless. Hello, my name is Justin Cheney, and I believe that every student in high school should be required to play at least one high school sport throughout their career. Now, I wanted to do this by broadcasting the importance of sports. Now, for the first part of my research, I wanted to see how the sports we play today, how they got their start, and how they've evolved since then. So school sports started really in the 1860s in eastern boarding schools in cities such as New York City, Boston, and Chicago. And on until the Progressive Era, which was from 1890 to 1920, did public schools start having sports teams. And this was really started with the Public Schools League, which was a group of public schools in the New York City area. And it's similar how we run conferences today, they would play each other. But school sports have also helped evolve other things as well, specifically physical education. Now, during this time, physical education was seen as very boring by the students because while they could leave school and play sports such as football, baseball, and track, they were stuck in these PE classes doing physical exercises and calisthenics. But in 1891, James Naismith invented the game of basketball, with his sole purpose being to help the lack of creativity in these physical education classes. Not only that, but in 1895, the YMCA created the game of volleyball, with again its sole purpose was to help liven up these PE courses. And so for the second part of my research, I wanted to see how the sports we play today benefit the students who are playing them. Now, the first benefit that I found while doing my research was how it helped them physically. And while doing this, I found a study that said children ages 6 to 14, less than half of this age group were meeting the recommended guideline of 60 minutes of physical activity a day. But this is alarming because this is the age group with required physical education classes. And the benefits that you receive in these 60 minutes are really important, such as an increase in muscle mass, bone density, a reduced risk of cardiovascular diseases, and of body fat. But students who are also participate in sports are 15 times more likely to reach these 60 minutes of daily physical fitness than those who do not participate in sports. In fact, this was shown through a fitness test study done on middle school students. And what they did was they took a group of middle school students and they put them through a group of tests that included the pacer test, a push-up test, and a curl-up test. And in all three tests, it was consistent that those who played 3 or more sports scored the highest, followed by those who played 1 to 2 sports, and those who played 0 sports at all scored the lowest. But sports also help students in the classroom as well. Now, doing my research, I found a study that on average, a student athlete has a 3.15 GPA. On the other hand, those who do not participate in sports score a 2.4 GPA, which is a significant difference. There are traits that you learn on the field or on the court that you can apply to the classroom, such as how to properly organize or how to manage your time correctly. But the school also has requirements that each athlete must meet in order for them to play these sports, such as a certain GPA that they must meet or classes that they have to pass. Now, if a student is really passionate about the sport and they don't want to let down their teammates or coaches, they'll make sure they meet this requirement and often go above. And for the last part of my research is I wanted to see how the sports that we were playing connected with the fans. And that was through how they've been broadcasted. Now, radio and television laid the groundwork for sports broadcasting. And radio came first and had a massive effect on sports. Before radio, you had to be at the sporting event live, or you read about it maybe the week after in the paper. But with radio, you could tune in to a boxing fight that was happening halfway across the country, and that just had never happened before. But what also helped radio is there were major sporting events that were being put on it. In the 1910s, collegiate and professional football were being broadcasted. 1921, the first World Series was being put on the airways, and prize fighters such as Joe Louis and Jack Dempsey were being broadcasted on the airways. In fact, a certain Joe Louis fight had 58% of American households tuning in to listen to it. Now, by 1939, the television was invented, and it even allowed a deeper connection with its viewers, because not only could you listen to what was happening, but you could see what was happening in front of you as well. By 1951, color was added to the television, which helped enhance the connection with its viewers. And by 1965, graphics were put on, which helped the audience know what that player's name was, what position he played, how many points he'd scored, and therefore. Now, as I said, radio and television laid the groundwork for sports broadcasting, but ESPN took it to a whole new level. And how that happened was Bill Rasmussen, who was the founder of ESPN, decided to make it the first 24/7 sports news network. Now, he also realized while doing this that you couldn't just broadcast these games and talk about them because after a while it would get boring and old. So he decided to explore documentaries and take deep dives into these athletes and coaches. And he did this through programs such as 30 for 30 or Sports Centuries, which helped try to connect the average fan with these sometimes hard to connect with athletes and coaches and sports teams. Now, all of my research led me to what I wanted to do for my product. So for my product, I had certain goals that I wanted to reach. The first goal I wanted to highlight the athletes that I was broadcasting, specifically the middle school athletes. They almost never get the crowd that high school games get, and they're never broadcasted on the radio or live streamed on the Willow Springs YouTube page. But for a personal goal, I wanted to understand how the whole broadcasting of sports worked. I had a general knowledge of how things work, but I really wanted a step-by-step detailed process of what went on in the booth. So for my product, my first event was a middle school football game, and that was live streamed on the Willow Springs YouTube page, and it was done up at the booth at Polinsky Field. And my partner was Ben Clarkston. He was the color analyst, and I was the play-by-play commentator. And with this being our first broadcast, we were both really nervous, and we really didn't know how to prepare for it. So it was kind of adjusting on the fly, but luckily with football being a slower paced game, we got comfortable within 5 to 10 minutes, and it was a really fun experience. Now for my second event, I did the middle school boys basketball game, and in the background here is actually a picture from that game. And again, Ben was my color analyst, and I was still the play-by-play commentator. And it was also on the live streamed on the Willow Springs YouTube page. Now the biggest difference between these football and basketball games was the pace at which they were played. Now me and Ben both played football and basketball, and we understood that these games are quite a bit different throughout their pace, but we really weren't prepared for it on the broadcast. So it was again adjusting on the fly, and it took a little bit longer, but eventually we got it under control. Now for my third event, I did a varsity girls basketball game, and this was actually their first district game, and it was here at home. And instead of Ben being my color analyst, I had Larry Spence do it with me, and another difference was it was actually on the radio this time instead of just live streamed on the YouTube page. Now luckily for me, Larry Spence, who'd been doing this a really long time, has been really good for it a long time. He helped me a lot with transitioning into and out of timeouts, what to do in timeouts, how to lead in and out of the game, and it was really a fun experience, so I'm glad I was able to do it. But I did have a few challenges along the way with my senior project. The first was scheduling. I'm a student athlete, so I have games and practices that I had to make sure didn't conflict with certain home games that these sports teams were playing. So it took a lot of looking ahead and a lot of crossing off of games that I really wish I could have broadcasted, but these practices and games conflicted with it. And I did have a minor impact with COVID-19, specifically on my football games. I wanted to broadcast their first home game, but I was sadly in quarantine for that game. I planned on doing the second game as well, but my original partner for these broadcasts, he was put in quarantine the day before the game. So I had to move it back to the third and final home game, and luckily I got Ben to do it with me, and I was able to broadcast the game. Without high school sports, I think my entire high school experience would have been drastically different. I think my transition would have been much more difficult, and I would have missed out on a lot of friends and missed out on a lot of awesome memories that I've made. These are a couple of the reasons why I believe that every high school student should be required to play at least one high school sport throughout their career. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
What would you say to the parent of a child that has no physical ability at all?
I think what I would say is that they could at least try it out and see if they liked it or not. There are a lot of sports, golf doesn't require the most physical ability for it, and they could try that out. And if they don't like it, then they don't have to play it again, but at least if they are able to give it a go for one season, I think they would really like it.
Is this the direction that you're thinking about going?
into college?
I've always been interested with sports broadcasting. Obviously, I'm a really big sports fan, so I've listened to a lot of sports broadcasters, and I really like sports broadcasting, and I wanted to see just how fun it was, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I would like to proceed with it.
Personal comment, Justin overcame quite a few challenges in scheduling that girls' basketball game. How many times did we try to get that in? It was at least 3 times
Yeah.
before we finally were able to get in that district varsity game.
Yeah.
You did a good job, too.
Justin, how did you prepare for the individual ball games, because you have to know players and numbers and?
So for the middle school games, I was really less prepared than I really should have been. I got the rosters a couple of days before, so I could look through any names that I would think would be difficult to pronounce on the air. Now for the varsity game, I did a little bit more preparation. That was looking back on past YouTube live streams of old broadcasts and just kind of seeing, you know, how the play-by-play commentator how would he broadcast if something like this happened. You know, if the ball is swinging around really quick, it's kind of hard to catch every single detail. So I'd look into that and, you know, see how they did it.
How much time do you estimate that you prepared for an individual broadcast?
Specifically for the radio, I know I put at least a couple of hours into it, making sure that, one, I knew the names of the players, and then two, I watched multiple games of how they broadcasted these high school games.
And did this cut into your tennis practice?
No, I was not playing
Okay.
tennis at the time,
Okay.
so no worries there, Coach Ruiz.
Does anyone have any additional questions? Go ahead and fill out your scoring and.
Yes.
Do you know anything about these? That's what came up when it showed down.
Hey, Bree. Hey, Bree.
Your turn, Dr. D.
Came back up. Came back up with students.
Do that. Careful, do that to him. So you can do it like Alice? It's gonna be how my school looked at it. I know, that's what I said. All right. You're supposed to have it up. Take my place. Yeah. If you want some more?
Yes, like, that he wanted to go on, like, the couple of weeks. Yeah.
I just want to welcome the judges and thank you for judging for us. Remind you once again that we are live streamed, so anything that might he said, might be also broadcast, but we do welcome questions and are grateful that you're here to present to us. Thank you, Clayton.
Judges rate. During the 2017 and 2018 school year, 80% of schools reported one or more incidents of violence upon their campus. Hello, my name is Clayton Madden. School safety is important to the well-being of students and staff around the country. I wrote my research paper over school safety. I talked about the history of school safety, different types of security measures schools may take to improve their security, and also cyber safety. Throughout most of our nation's history, school fires were the most widely publicized disaster. In 1908, an Ohio school, the Collinwood Lakeview Elementary School, burned down, killing 172 children. Another threat to schools in our nation's history has been natural gas. In 1937, in Texas, the New London Consolidated School blew up, killing nearly 300 people. Natural gas was particularly dangerous then because it didn't have an aroma, and it was very hard to detect the leak. In our nation's history, attacks have also been a big deal. As early as 1927, a bombing occurred in Michigan by a man named Andrew Cohey, which killed 45 individuals and wounded 58 others. And then a little bit more recent, in 2006, a shooting in Pennsylvania at a small Amish school. 11 people were shot and 5 of them had died. With all the disasters that occurred in our nation's history, people started gaining more awareness that they should take a step up and actually do something. In 1901, New York governor signed a bill requiring mandatory fire drills within the state of New York to help students learn what they must do during a fire, the routes they need to take, and to stay calm. And the weeks following the New London Consolidated School blowing up, laws were passed mandating gas companies to put an additive into gas so it produced an aroma and was easier to detect. Schools can take various options when improving their security. One such option is a controlled entrance. A controlled entrance is it's a maintained door and entrance to the school that's monitored, and comings and goings of people can be logged, and it's controlled by usually 1 or 2 people the entire day. Schools can also hire armed guards, or an option suggested by Virginia's Governor Bob McDonnell was actually arming the teachers and training them to be like own built-in armed guards, but also teachers. With the improvement of technology in the recent couple decades, video surveillance has also become a widespread option. In New York, a school is installing cameras with the capabilities to scan license plates and actually run them through stolen vehicle databases and match them. And then microphones. In New Mexico, a school is installing or has installed microphones that can detect gunfire and alert police officers within 20 seconds. These microphones can also determine the make and model of the gun, and schools can also install metal detectors on entrances. With the improvement of technology and how it's become such a part of everyday lives, cyber safety has become a real issue. Students, they can be cyberbullied on the internet. They can also encounter explicit images, and in worst case scenarios, they may encounter an online predator. Schools can take a couple of options when trying to improve their online safety. They can create an AUP, or an acceptable use policy, where the student and the student's parents actually read through the policy and acknowledge what the student should and shouldn't do on the internet, on the school's network, and sign it. Schools can also use filters or blockers. So certain inappropriate things or what the school deems unnecessary for the student to be on cannot be accessed while on the school's network. And schools can also teach students what it is to be a good digital citizen, so what they should and shouldn't do on the internet. When I was deciding what my project would be, I didn't really have an idea what I wanted to do going into senior year, and Ms. Wilson went through a list of stuff Officer Moore had wanted done, and one of them was a breaching board. I was like, that's something I can break down. So I built this so the school officers could have something that they could practice breaching on and actually improve their technique and how they should do it, so they have more practice and better trained, and it improve their techniques and capabilities. Starting off, I didn't have any blueprints. All I had was this picture here, and we actually had to sketch out the door and find out how much material we need and exactly how we build it. I spent quite a few days just coming in and learning how to weld, because going into this I had no idea how to weld. That was just something I'd have to learn. I spent probably a good 4 times coming in and just sitting there and welding, burning it. And then actually got to learn how to use a blowtorch too, which I learned that pretty quickly. It's pretty simple. I liked it. Got to cut the material out. And then it came to putting it together. We had I set it up on the ground and tacked the corners of it, and then made sure it was square before I welded it down together. And then the same on the legs. Had to make sure that they were in line, and then tack them, and then make sure they're still in line, and weld them again. And then it came to my favorite part, was with the testing. What I've been looking forward towards the entire time I was building this thing. We installed the door on it and drilled holes in the side of the frame so you can stick wooden dowel rods into the frame and into the door, so it provides the resistance. And the more dowel rods you stick in, the greater resistance. And we got 4 of them drilled in now. They might need more to get some bigger, strong guys up there breaking it down. I actually got to test it myself, and we got a video of it here. When doing this, I didn't know exactly how much force I needed to throw in this, so I threw everything I had in and about tripped doing it. But the door did break down. I faced quite a few challenges when building my product. A big concern with me is my schedule. I have a part-time job and I work most days after school, so I had to cut time out of that to be able to come in and work. I had to manage that, school, and stuff I have to do at home, which was kind of challenging. And also welding experience. No idea how to use a welder or blowtorch going into this thing. Did it good enough to build my product. Do my judges have any questions?
Is this something that you might have an interest in doing?
I thought about it. Walden said that I kind of had a knack for it. I might pick it up as a hobby later on in life.
I honestly don't remember, Clay, but do you remember how much the door was that we used as the model?
Like how much it costed?
Yeah.
You were like, it was like 2,200
Right.
or so. The
Yeah.
one we modeled it off of.
Sounds right.
It was ridiculously high. If my judges want, they can go to the Verdun and see the breaching door.
Okay, do we have any additional questions?
Is there anything that you could do to improve your door now?
I think we can, yeah. We thought about putting holes in the legs so you can actually mount it down to the ground. Because when we were testing that, when I hit it, the top of it, the bottom of it came up. Also just little touch-ups here and there, and wasn't the best welder.
Any additional questions? Thank you so much, Mike.
Our judges would go ahead and fill out the rubrics, make some comments if you choose to, and it's in the box.
If y'all do wanna go see, it's in the very room.
Nice job.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Which side do you want? Does it matter? Especially the one
Feel free to come on in and have a seat. You're just finishing up. You know the routine. Never done that. And it will start around 7, so you have about 6 minutes.
Okay. It's bigger.
Okay, I would like to welcome everyone. We will start in about 2 or 3 minutes, but first I'd like to welcome our judges and for donating your time and your efforts. This is Janda, and her session number is 1196. And if you don't know your judge number, I can look it up for you. I do want to remind everyone that we are on live stream, so anything that is said will probably be broadcast and picked up. So that's not to dissuade you from asking questions, because our students have done a large amount of research and they want you to ask questions and they want you to know what they have found out about this topic. So toward the end, there will be a time that you can go ahead and ask questions. If anyone has any problems logging in or anything, please let me know, and we will start in about 1 or 2 minutes. Judges, I will introduce Janda Duttridge.
Are my judges ready? Yes. So, I want you to sit and imagine you're outside playing with your kids and you have your toner outside with you. It goes off. There's a house fire. You run inside, get your kids in, tell your wife goodbye, and run out the door. You show up to the fire, you walk in, and you hear a distraught mother crying. You hear a distraught mother crying for her kids because she can't find them. You see a dad, can't find his wife or his kids. You get them all out safely, but you don't save their house. They're all rushed to the hospital. Hi, my name is Janda Duttridge, and I'm here to talk on the importance of fire safety. With fire safety, there's a lot of different things that go into it. One of the main topics is the grade levels that the fire department goes to talk to show fire safety, the technology behind it, vehicle safety, the difficulties of being a firefighter, how to become a firefighter, and insight on my life as a kid, and even my product. The first topic that I'm going to be talking about are the grade levels. In elementary, they do a lot more with the fire trucks and let them spray the water on the building. Here, we do it at the new gym. They also show them some of the tools and show them how fast they can put on their gear. In the middle school, they do kind of the same thing, but they go more in depth with it and do fire extinguishers. And I know in bigger cities, they do like a presentation and have more things, but since our town is so small, we don't really have that opportunity here. In high school, it's harder to reach out to us because we have the mentality that these things will never happen to us. However, that is not the case. This year, we actually had a student's house catch on fire, and that opened up a lot of our eyes. In a fire, if you were to ever to become on fire, you need to yell, stop, drop, and roll. You don't want to run around because fire needs oxygen to burn. So if you're running around, it'll just cause your surrounding areas to catch on fire, and then the fire department has a bigger problem to solve. The technology used behind it is fire alarms. With fire alarms, you want to check them every 3 months to make sure they are still working properly. You want to clean them every 3 months as well. With a vacuum cleaner, you don't want to use any chemicals because that could cause an electrical fire. And changing the batteries every 6 months. Do not hold a match up to the fire alarm because that could cause a fire as well. And don't press the test button on the side. I couldn't really find any research on why you don't do that, but in the research it said not to press it. Just change your batteries every 6 months is what I would advise. And that will help prevent the fire spread if you were asleep, because the fire alarm would in turn wake you up and you'd be able to get out of your house faster and call 911. However, in vehicles you do not have that technology available because you cannot just attach a fire alarm inside of your vehicle. So in the vehicles that you drive every day, it is safe to not leave flammable items in your vehicle, such as hairsprays, sodas, anything like that. You always want to make sure all of your liquids are filled and none of the hoses are busted or frayed. Buses are the safest way to travel, and that is why schools use them. If there were to be a bus fire, the bus driver's job is to get all of the children off and get them 100 to 150 feet away from the bus until the fire department gets there, and then the fire department will take over from there. It is also the bus driver's job to keep all the students off of the bus and not let them go back on to get their belongings. In semis in Canada, they are making a new technology to put into the semis to prevent rollovers and accidents to happen. Most of the time when a semi gets into an accident, they catch on fire because they have a lot of flammable items in them. There are a lot of difficulties of being a firefighter. One of the main difficulties is physical toll. As firefighters and people in general, we do not take care of our bodies. So whenever a firefighter is constantly go, 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 they don't really take care of their bodies that well. There's also a lot of trauma due to this. My dad used to be a volunteer firefighter, but there was a lot of times that he would come home and he wouldn't be able to talk about it. And as a kid, I could tell that that really hurt him because he was very open to us about everything, except for that, because even though he could not talk about it. A lot of sleepless nights, and a lot of sleepless nights for us as well. Here are some of the fires that my dad has been involved in. Some of them were controlled and some of them were not. As a kid, since my dad was on the fire department, we practically lived there. We were constantly there and hardly ever home. Every time we went to town to do anything, it was automatically, we have to go to the fire department, so that's where we were. To become a firefighter, you need to be 18 years or older, you need to have a valid license, no felony record, you have to be first aid, AED, and CPR certified. You have to have your fire 1 and 2 as well. However, since our fire department is so small, you have to pay for those things yourself because we do not get the funding that we deserve. These are some pictures of my dad. For my product, I decided to paint some of the fire hydrants around town. I painted 5 of them because that's all I had enough time to do because of COVID and weather. With the fire hydrants used to be only privately owned in your house or on your property, not in your house, on your property, and you had to keep them up to date. Also, shopping malls or hospitals, big apartment buildings, anything like that were only the ones that had fire hydrants. However, when you drive down Main Street, there's at least 7 on Main Street that you can visibly see. There are even some that are back behind buildings that you can't see. With fire hydrants, there are different classes, colors, and the flow, which is the PSI, and GPM, which is the water pressure in the fire hydrant. So class AA is light blue, and it's 1,000 GPMs, 1,500 GPMs or greater. And then class A is green, which is 1,000 to 1,499 GPMs. Class B is orange, which is 500 to 99 GPMs. And class C is red, which is what we have here, which is 500 GPMs or less. And that is the lowest grade of fire hydrant that you can have. This was the beginning of my fire hydrant that I had painted. It's on Main Street, it's at the 4-way. And then the middle one is like in the process of me painting it, and the last one is the final product. As you can tell, the fire hydrant looks a lot brighter. I struggled with a lot during getting my product ready, which one of them was getting the paint. For the paint, it has to be fire resistant and waterproof, and it's really hard to find and very expensive. So I went to a city council meeting to present my product to see if they would provide the money or the paint that I needed, and they did. However, it was a struggle for me to get up and talk to them because all my life I have struggled with social anxiety. My mentor was very flaky and he never showed up for anything, so my dad ended up helping me. which I know that's not a thing that can happen, but I had to get it done. So I didn't get any mentor hours, but that was okay because I got quality time with my dad. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
What's the biggest thing you learned from this project?
That I need to manage my time a lot better, probably, and that fire safety isn't all about the safety behind it, it's more of what firefighters go through as well.
When you spoke to city council, did you have to go to their meeting?
Yes, I had to schedule a time and go to a meeting.
How did you prepare for that?
That was the one time that my mentor actually got with me and he helped me provide the questions, and then I ended up going by myself. Yes.
Jan, I was a volunteer firefighter for a while, so I studied some of that a bit. I'm going to throw you a kind of a tough one. So one thing I remember from Firefighter 1 was they went over some of the history of it. They mentioned that Frederick Graff made the first cast iron fire hydrant.
Yes.
Are you familiar with him?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, what year did he develop that?
I believe it was 1801.
Oh, good job. Well, you're not off the hook. I got a follow-up question.
Okay.
Do you know what year he was born?
I think I read somewhere it was 1775, but I could be wrong on that.
Ooh, very good. 2 for 2. Good job.
All right, are there any additional questions? Okay, judges, take your time to finish your evaluations, and Janda, thank you so much for a good presentation.
I'll jump over it.
One o'clock. Yeah, you get to do it. Okay. Okay. You're the best.
I agree. This Sunday was spent on the couch, like. Go ahead, you can go ahead.
She turned it up, because, oh my gosh,
I was like,
I had
I
to
did.
fit that day.
Most of them are on the left, Janda Picker's on the right, but most everyone else has been on the left. Nope. Thank you so much for taking so much time to.
Oh, I enjoyed it very much.
It's a blessing. I brought a winter coat just because I knew if worst came to worst, I could put something on.
It's so short.
that natural, really?
That's my natural hair. Gosh, it makes miserable. Miserable. When I had my mom comb back in my hair, brush this, I can't reach.
Hi. I couldn't find you. Let me go sit myself. I'll come sit by you. I'm not judging this one, but I'm gonna sit.
Where have you driven? Where have you driven with that new car? You gonna get that other car running?
Hopefully soon. We've been working on it. We're paying a lot.
What's it going to be when you're older?
I'm hearing my he's changed his mind like 45 times.
That's part of the process.
I know you're going to show me. Is Nan driving? I don't think so.
Wonderful, how are you?
Is it really? I think we're following each other. He's in almost every one that I'm doing.
Stop it.
Did I do that? Did you really?
That's wonderful.
Because my name is the one.
Love that.
See, now you can get the whole thing whenever I said I.
I don't know.
You go put it.
First person.
Love that you actually have to do that.
Yes, sir. Just put it.
Just a word to the judges, we will be starting in about 2 minutes. This is Kaylee Hardman, and her session number is 1213. If you have any concerns or problems logging in, let me know. And just a reminder, we are on live feed, so everything we say could be picked up on the. Yes, even now. So just a heads up. We'll start at 20 after. I'm ready to graduate. All right, judges, family, and friends, I would like to introduce to you Kaylee Hardman.
Are my judges ready? Yes. In the words of Hans Christian Andersen, where words fail, music speaks. It has been proven that mentally and verbally, music can help produce emotion that you cannot produce through words or actions. Hi, my name is Kaylee Hardman. Today I'll be talking to you about why music from within is so important. Now, I started my music when I was in the 5th grade is when I first joined. Well, I kept going, I didn't quit, and about my 8th grade year, I had a very bad depression hit. And it was to a point where I didn't want to be me anymore. I couldn't be myself. I felt very uncomfortable everywhere. I was just very sad all the time. But being in my band class for 1 hour a day just made everything go away. I could just be myself, and I didn't have to worry about everything, which is when my passion grew. My passion for music is the strongest it's ever been now, because music is literally what saved my life. I feel like if it wasn't for music today, I probably wouldn't be here in this classroom presenting to you guys. Now, I showed this diagram here to show what all parts of the brain actually get used whenever you listen to music. It involves like the playing, all the movement and everything. These are the different parts of the brain that actually affect, and it's what makes your brain run and process things differently from other brains. So if you listen to music, if you play an instrument, your brain will actually process things differently than someone who doesn't listen to music at all or doesn't play an instrument. I thought the history of music was very important in my research. The history of music is what makes music music. If you look at music today, you'll realize that it's very repetitive. It's not different, it's not original, it's the same thing. Now, music back when the greater artists were around, it was original, it was different. It wasn't just repetitive, it was one piece of artwork that was just completely original. And I was trying to find someone who I could actually put out there that could prove how important music was to them. And I decided to choose Beethoven. If you don't know who Beethoven is, he's a composer that was deaf. He could not hear, yet he wrote some of the most amazing pieces in music history that we still know today. Now, another important part about music is the genres. Most people don't know more than 6 genres, but I think it's very important they do know that there are more than just the 6 you may listen to. Take intonal, for instance. Intonal is a genre that is not one thing. It can be many things. It can have different tempos, it can have different notes, it's a wide range, it's not in one box. It's like way out of the box. And tempo is actually what makes the music pop. Tempo is what makes the song the emotion it is. If you listen to a slower tempo, it's going to be probably a more sadder song. A moderate tempo is going to be your more laid back, kind of in the middle, I'd say reggae. And then a faster tempo is going to be your more upbeat, you want to dance to it songs. Now, I have a diagram up here, and you'll notice in the middle it says psychedelic. A psychedelic is something that you can take or listen to or do such that will affect your brain in a way that makes your emotion or your body language change. Music, when you listen to it, you process it through your brain, and it makes your body language different, it makes your emotion change. It is a psychedelic. And you'll notice that around all of these are the different kinds of music genres that we have today. No matter what song you listen to, it's going to have something instrumental within it. Whether it be a soundboard, whether it be live music, or whether it just be like, whether it be a tape. You're going to have some sort of instrumental within that. Instruments are very important. For me, I play the trumpet. A trumpet is a brass instrument, but we also call it part of the winds because you use air to blow through the instrument to make a noise. Now, within instruments, we have woodwinds and we have our brass, but together they're called the winds. Within your wind instruments, you have different ranges. For example, this is trumpet staff. Now, range, it can be above staff, so if you look at the lines, you'll have above it, and you'll have below it, and you'll have within range. Now, what you call the one below the line is below staff, above line is above staff. And you'll notice these are going down in half steps each time, which means that the sound is going to get lower for the instrument playing this. Music affects your brain in many different ways, in many different parts. We still don't know much about the brain today because it's a very complicated organ to fully know. But what has been proven is that when you listen to music, you will feel differently, no matter what kind of music it is. Something I found very important is they did a study over music and color. Now I know you may be wondering why that's so important. Say a sad song was played. You'll notice most people will correspond sad with blue, or happy with yellow. Color is what also relates with music. You think of something, you think of a color. And that also can alter your mood state. And that also goes to music education within kids. Kids who are in a musical class, it's been proven that they do better in school. They have a higher GPA. They're out more. They're not just in a shell doing what they can to go to the end of the year. They actually come more out and they're more themselves than anything. In music, it rewards the brain. It makes kids listen. It helps kids learn. It actually teaches them to be nicer, and it helps them grow up. And it gives them a reason to not quit. I can tell you right now that if it wasn't for my band class, I don't believe I'd be in school anymore because there was just one point I didn't try and I didn't want to be here. But because of my music class and because of how important it was to me, I chose to stay. My product came a little after the research. I knew kind of what I wanted to do, but it changed because my thoughts are all jumbled and I was very confused. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my research helped me really bring out my product. In my thought process, you'll notice when you make a musical piece, you can't just throw something on paper. You have to have rhythm, you have to have the different, like, you have to have forte, you have to have fast, slow, moderate. It's not, you have to have the genre. You can't just throw it on paper. You have to actually think, you have to make it your own. My project process, it was a little difficult. I went in and worked on it a couple hours every day because I don't have a long attention span, but I just kept working with it, kept working with my rhythm and corresponded everything, and it all worked out to be fairly decent. And my final draft, I could not be more proud of. This is something that came from me, and I've never been more impressed with myself. Challenges I faced while doing this is I was in and out of the doctors a lot. I had a medical condition that I couldn't control, and it made me very sick. So I didn't get to work on my product a lot. I had to try and do things while also being sick because it was all just very fluctuating, and I didn't know whether I was going to be at school that day or not. But it helped me grow. It helped me with time management, and it honestly helped me be a more confident person. Because I was not confident at the beginning of this year. I just wanted to hurry up, get through it. But band has taught me that I need to go be more outgoing if I want to make a change in this world. Now, I do agree with Mr. Hans. He was right, because I can tell you right now that when my words can't speak, my music definitely will speak for me. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
So did you write a song?
I did, yes. It's actually right up here, the very bottom one.
So how do you start
How did I start? Like,
writing your song?
well, I actually have it up on my board here. First, you have to figure out the genre you want to do. I didn't do one genre, I did three actually. I mixed jazz, classical, and rock, because those are just three of my favorite genres. I did a survey that I asked the preschoolers, because they're actually brutally honest since they're younger, and I thought that'd be a pretty smart idea. And whenever I got their intel and how they felt about certain songs, I chose one jazz song, one rock song, and one classical song. They gave me their feedback, and that's when I started writing. I had to start by hand because I didn't quite know how to work Mr. Cochran's computer, so it was really nerve-wracking, but then I finally got it down. That was before I'd edited it, but I'd had it all, both parts written, and then I changed some things, and I edited it, and I added the different things I needed, like staccatos, forte, mezzo piano, all that stuff, and it finally came out to be my final product. But within it, you also have to think of rhythm. You can't have the notes clash, otherwise it'll sound bad. So you have to have mainly the same notes, but maybe in a different octave, or two notes that go together but aren't the same. So it all just really kind of goes.
So what instrument did you write for?
The trumpet.
And I assume that's the instrument you play?
I said it was.
Okay.
Did you perform it for the preschoolers?
No, sadly, with everything, I haven't got a chance to actually do it yet, but I do plan on doing it. I'm very excited to play it and get it all going.
Have you performed it for anybody?
I played a little bit of it and sent it to Miss Wilson, so she's heard some of it. And he's heard me play it in the band room, so.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you so much.
music, if we scan the code, is it on there?
No, I think those are just pictures of music.
The song itself, I haven't fully recorded. It'll be out there.
Sweet.
Where's the trifecta? This one, so somebody has to sit here. We're gonna make them our friends.
Everyone around you can keep the safety net for you, so you're not gonna fail.
Thank you.
Unless you want to stay.
Hello again.
Make sure you tell Jessica I said hi.
And Christiana the same. Any big summer plans?
Just gotta get through tomorrow first, I think.
You said going to a job and keeping a job and.
Day by day. Actually, we're gonna try to go to Northern California this summer. Hit the Northwest.
Yeah.
She's never been there. I have. I think it's beautiful. I'd like to take her
But
there.
it's encouraging.
I would love to live in
Something
the
you
state
don't
of
want to do the rest of
Washington,
your
but
life.
there's too many things happening there.
Well, there's
that
some
are
crazy
not
stuff, yeah,
appropriate, so.
I agree. I've got some family from Seattle. I like to visit every once in a while. I don't want to live there currently.
Doesn't matter which side I set up. They usually put it on that side, but it
I
doesn't
gotta
matter.
clean up all.
You could set the change today.
Put it on.
Put it on the ceiling. Why, thank you. Appreciate it.
I gotta clean up all the messes that have sat for the last 4 years, so I'm pretty sure that'll occupy the summer. Nice to see you working.
Yeah, something like that.
Appreciate that.
Either meeting here or at my house, so. Just like, huh? Probably, yeah, for sure. But it's whatever.
Candy wasn't there. You can't qualify, okay?
Yeah.
How turns have tables.
It just comes naturally for you guys.
Comes natural.
Does that come natural?
Just be glad to be
I
there.
guess doesn't make it that way.
Oh my.
I went to
I don't
4
think I
years
would
of
survive.
college just to be able to do it.
I've gone to 4 years of high school to try to be able to do this and still can't.
Exactly. You can do it. If we can do it, you can do it.
That's between, that's up to you.
Yeah.
You just be careful, okay?
I'm telling you, something else.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's so difficult.
I know, I'm working on it.
I hate
We did really good for about a week, and then it kind of slowed back.
No, I literally can't clean back.
Slowly
So,
back in my pocket.
when are you able to be hired?
Only so much I can do.
Whenever you want.
As of next Tuesday?
Well, I moved Sunday, but I can work up till Sunday.
Oh, okay, wow. I already had one plan tonight, so.
There's a lot of judges in here though. The other ones I saw presenting, they're only like 3 or 4. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nope, just 6.
I'm not a judge.
You just came to watch me.
Yeah, I'm staying to watch. She's my
She doesn't capitalize it.
There was one that there was
Yeah.
like 6 in there.
Yeah, this has 1, 2,
I'm gonna ask her that.
3, 4, 5 digits. Those two
No, that makes sense, that makes sense, because I don't have those.
He told me he wouldn't fail me, so it's okay. He said I won't fail you.
Our emails,
A lot of people put NCKAYO, like that is not
I
right.
can mark
Not
out
right.
these for you if you want.
Yeah, because it'll average out with everybody else's.
I'll just grade harder.
Well, I already got a D on mine,
Why?
because my nose was out.
Oh, yeah, you were supposed to take those out. I forgot.
You can learn from that.
All right, I just want to first off thank the judges for spending your time today for judging our seniors. They have gone through an incredible amount of work to get to this point. And this is Mackenzie George, and we are in session 1203 is her number. And if you do not know your judge number, let me know and I can look it up. Brief reminder that we are still on live feed, so any kind of conversations that are being had are going to broadcast for the world. So just a reminder to that. We will start here in about 1 minute or less. All right, we are ready to start the final session. Mackenzie?
Are my judges ready? As John Wooden once said, do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. People often become so discouraged with themselves and their failures that they don't see that they can grow and achieve the goals that they want to achieve. Hi, I'm Mackenzie George, and today I'm going to be talking about bettering facilities for better youth sports. So often in a sport, you are looked at like your physical activity and you have exercise to do in that sport. This comes along in health. When you're active in things, that lowers the risk of obesity and chronic disease. As in tennis, we have to run a lap every day before practice or on booster, which is half a mile. That gets our blood and everything pumping in order to be able to practice, which is good. The exercise also helps with anxiety and depression. It has been proven to lower that, and being able to exercise keeps your mind off of the things like that, maybe reduce your anxiety and all that kind of thing, which will lead to better team skills, lowering that. Often in a sport, you have to be able to make new relationships. You know, you travel to other teams to play that. And as tennis is, it's a one-on-one sport. You know, you keep track of your score, you shake hands with your opponent, and you often have to be friendly with that person. If there's a problem in the scoring, you have to address that, so you have to be able to really have good team skills. Also, developmental skills, that comes with communication. In any sport, you have to have good communication. At the end, almost of every sport, you either give the other team a high five or shake their hand or whatever to tell them good job. Recess is a good way for younger kids to be able to work on their developmental skills. On the playground, you may meet kids that you don't know or that may not be in your grade. Just like in the elementary, all those kids are running around together and getting to make new friends and new relationships with one another. Parental support, the involvement, this can go either positive and negative. I've seen it go both ways. When a parent is involved, them like pressuring you and stuff can maybe want you to be better and maybe do better. But if they're putting too much pressure on you and maybe making you be in more practice than you out of your regular practice, that may make you not enjoy that sport as much and may make you want to quit. that pressure of the parent will often lead to better grades, and I know the school, you can't have an F or you will get kicked out of that sport. You will not be able to participate in that sport. So that leads athletes to often want to have better grades, to get their work turned in on time, and to get those A's so they can keep their grades up to be able to participate in something they like. Attendance, you also have to have good attendance, because in a sport you're going to either leave school early or not go to school on some of those days due to tournaments, so you have to have good attendance along with grades. Which led me to my project of redoing booster bathrooms. I have gotten like a lot of text and things saying thank you from the community that I didn't even know people knew I did it. But right now it's baseball and softball season, so people are using it a lot. But as you can tell, this right here is the before picture, and the floors were not in good shape, and that was the after picture. So my steps throughout this process: the first day I took about 5 hours of cleaning. We cleaned from ceiling to the floor of both the women and men's restrooms. We deep cleaned, we swept, we mopped, and we did all that kind of things, and wiped down the walls, especially in the stall doors. The next Saturday we met, we decided to go ahead and paint the walls. We did the white, and we ran into an issue where we couldn't paint one of the walls because of the type of material it was. The paint would not stick to that. So we did the white brick, and we painted the white stalls, and then we did a maroon stripe for 2 bricks in both the men and women's restrooms. The next Saturday we met, we cleaned again, and we touched up anything that needed to be touched up of the white and maroon, and that we were done that day. And then the next day, the next Saturday, we swept and mopped really well and decided to start our floor, which I did with gray porch paint. We figured that was the best way to go, and that wouldn't peel up as much as regular paint would because of it being porch paint. Even though cleats are prohibited in the restroom, people still wear the cleats into the restroom, so we figured that would be the best option for that. Some difficulties I faced were weather. We went into a period where we had 2 weeks of constant snow. We were out of school, and I wasn't able to paint in that time period because of that weather. So that led me to having to work up to the weekend right before this project was due, which was no big deal because all I had left was the floors, which took about 2 hours. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But that led to a little bit of a crunch time, and like I had stated, I had to work up till the last weekend before it was due. Another difficulty was I had originally had a mentor from Kabul, but the times I would ask her to meet, she wouldn't be available, and our schedules just didn't work together, and she didn't necessarily see this as of a big a project it is to us. So I had to talk to Miss Wilson and switch my mentor, and I'm glad I did because I'm thankful for the mentor I had because she pushed me and made sure I was there every Saturday to get it done. As I stated, as John Wooden once said, do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. Push yourself to achieve those goals, and don't let your failures make you not be able to grow. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions? Yeah.
I didn't know you did this, and that's a great project, because that bathroom was disgusting.
You're right.
Now, this is my question. So, I would avoid it because it had, and I can't tell this from the pictures, but it had this acrid smell of urine in it all the time, and it was humid, so you felt like you were in this pee sauna all the time. Did your cleaning fix that effect?
Yes, it actually did. It
Bless
did.
your heart, your grade's going up because of that. Thank you so
It
much.
did. Yeah, and this is like kind of weird, but like people stay in there that don't have homes, like we've noticed, and we actually had to kick somebody out when we started cleaning it. They weren't happy, and another difficulty we ran into was them going back in when we finished the floors, and we had to go up and touch it up again, because it was during winter time, and those bathrooms are heated, so it's I guess a space for them to go. Yeah.
Are there any additional questions? Mackenzie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Judges, if you would finalize your rubrics and make comments, and please submit them. And thank you for everyone else for participating tonight.